Continuing here with The Treasure of the Magi, a study of modern Zoroastrianism by James Hope Moulton. We're still in the religion of the ladder Avesta. We should probably set them above the other angels, the Yazads, of whom the chief have been already named. The Yashts enable us to see their importance. A good indication of the relative prominence of the heavenly beings is found in the dedications of the days of the Parsi month as given in the Sirozaha. Yeah. The month has 30 days. It is divided into 2 weeks of 7 days and 2 of 8. The first day of each week is sacred to Her Mazda and the Amesha Spenta. It is named accordingly except Hormuzd Day from the day that follows. The table is as follows: Ahura Mazda, Gadvat, Bahumana, Best Right, Asha, Vahishta, the kingdom to be desired, Kshatra Virya, holy devotion, Spenta, Arameti, salvation, Harvatat, immortality, Amaritat, day before Attar, fire, Attar, waters, Ardvi, Anahita, sun, Havara, moon, Mah, Cyrus, Tishtriya, cattle, Geush Irvan, day before Mithra, obedience, Sraasha, justice, Rashnu, the Favashis, victory, Verithragna, air, Vayu, wind, Vata, day before Dana, religion, Dana, destiny, Ashe Vangu E, Ashe Vangu He. The title of the day is Ram. The title of day 21 is Ram. That is Raman Hu Astra, peace guardian of pastures. His relation to Vayu is not clear. It is Vayu who claims, the Yasht corresponding. Rectitude, Arshtat, heavens, Asman, earth, Zam, holy word, Mantra Spenta, boundless light, Anagra Raocha. Two very important genii, prominent in the Yashts, are strangely not commemorated. These, Hyoma and Havarena, are kingly glory. The names of the months are selected from these. They belong successively to the Farvashis, Asha, Harvatat, Tishtriya, Amaritat, Kshatra, Mithra, Anahita, Attar, Dana, Bahumana, and Arameti. The adoration of these heavenly beings is a matter of supreme importance. This is best seen in typical quotations taken from the older part of the Yashts. First, as to the Farvashis, of the vigor, might, and glory. Help, support, I tell thee truly. Spitima in them residing, them the spirits of the righteous, strong, victorious, around us. How they come to me for helping, how they brought assistance to me. Those strong spirits of the righteous, by their brightness and their glory. Zarathustra, I stay from ruin, yonder heavens, sublime and shining, that the whole earth doth encompass. Yash 13, 1-2. Mazda goes on to say how by the power and the glory Varchna of the Fravashis, he maintains the water spirit of the earth and all their activities, and brings to birth children conceived in the womb. By them the sun and moon and stars go upon their way. We turn to the Yasht in honor of Tturya, or Sirius, the angel of the rains. He appeals to men for sacrifice and oblation, and when he is defeated by the drought demon Apaosha, he sets it down to the absence of these offerings. But here we have to note the distribution of verse and prose, the latter being a very obvious later accretation, showing us how the latter age, very probably the Sassanian, took pains to heighten everything that exalted the ceremonial. Tchtria, then away he fleeth from the shore of Varukasha, the mythical world ocean. On a mile-long path he fleeth, woeful, sorrowful he crieth, woe is me, Ahura Mazda, plants and waters, sorrow cometh. Doom for thee, O faith of Mazda. Men do not worship me now, with a worship that names my name, or as other Yazatas are worshipped, with the worship that names their name. If men were to worship me with the worship that names my name, even as other Yazatas are worshipped, with a worship that names their name, then the strength I should have won me, strength of horses 10, 10 camels, 10 bulls, mountains 10, 10 rivers. I, who am Ahura Mazda, make mention of, I think the word is make mention of, because they're saying worship him with a worship that names his name. I make mention of him with a making mention of his, with a remembrance that names his name. So the needed strength I win him, strength of horses 10, 10 camels, 10 bulls, mountains 10, 10 rivers. Yasht 8, 13-25. There has been a rather interesting prose interpolation brought in by liturgiologists in the interest of invocation, pronouncing the name of the entity. We are very familiar with the usage. It begins with a kind of magical purpose. Well, Christians have long liked to use the word magical to refer to any other religion except their own, like some sort of hate speech. And that's definitely not how I mean that term on my channel. Thank you very much. Since the appropriate name is a part of the divinity's proper being, well, and therefore a sure way of compelling his intervention, well, that's the wrong way to put it, but it is well calculated to develop into a simple aid to faith. We have no means of knowing whether in the oldest version Ahura Mazda offered this sacrifice. For our present purpose, this does not matter. It stands in the text, which Parsis do not treat critically, and we, of course, criticize with full knowledge that we may make mistakes. What does this worship mean? Clearly, it is a means of magically bringing renewed vigor to the spiritual being in question, who must be reinvigorated by spiritual food and drink. If men do not perform the necessary office, the supreme deity must do it. A Parsi scholar explained the whole relation of Mazda to his angels thus: we must ask our servant to help us in getting something done, but this does not compromise our superior status. He admitted that the language was exaggerated. It is risky to possess no word for worship, but one that can be used indiscriminately of the deity and of the angels and the saints, there is real danger that such worship will tend to become, in all essentials, the same thing. It is no part of our purpose to examine the Yazads in detail and describe their several functions. The general impression of the whole system concerns us more just now. The monotheism of the latter Avestan religion has already suggested a very obvious parallel in the history of Christianity. The Roman Catholic or Greek Orthodox system in this respect does not materially differ from the Parsi. Monotheistic theory is intact, but unguarded terms have sometimes been used concerning the various departments of human life as though they were specially under the charge of subordinate spiritual beings. And just as we do not address the head of the state when we need the intervention of public authority, but appeal now to the local postmaster, now to a judge, and under very special conditions to a secretary of state, so does a Parsi pray to Hayoma for wisdom, to Varatragna for victory, always naming the Yazad after Ahura Mazda and the Mesha Spans, but with his thought concentrated on the Yazad all the same. Many a Christian peasant prays after like manner. The monotheistic theology is preserved, but it can hardly be said that the monotheistic religion remains. For when prayer is made to any being but God, he is ipso facto thrust out from the sphere which he claims as his own. The analogy of a human state or a human business concern is utterly fallacious when we are thinking of God, since the supreme head of the human institution is only a man, at best, but abler and better informed than other men. Well, okay, they're in a human form, but even the devotee is more than a human at best, We compromise fatally our conception of the wisdom and power of God as soon as we cease to go direct to Him in all our needs. Prayer is the final test of any real monotheism. Well, most of these monotheisms aren't monotheism. Christianity is definitely not monotheism in any way, shape, or form, really. Is there more than one? Or you talk about separate personages? Then not monotheism. And the name is really misleading as soon as prayer is offered to any spirit less than God himself. We will take next the doctrine of the Fravashis as leading us naturally to that of the hereafter. The composite character of these spirits has been already observed, and the great importance of the work for which Mazda needs their help, an analysis of the distribution of prose and verse in the very long yasht devoted to their praise, is useful as showing all that the main features of the doctrine were current in the old period when verse was freely used. One of the principal exceptions is the passage in which the Fravashis came appealing for praise and sacrifice from men. It is perhaps rather welcoming to us when we find that this does not belong to the writing that comes from the age when literature had not quite gone to sleep. Another point of interest is the lateness of the passages exaggerating the worship of Zarathustra. To this point we will return. So even in this tradition, it's apparent Zarathustra did not want divinized. The pages of prose which figure in the text are mostly covered with the names of the saints. Qua versu dicere non est. They strike us powerfully by the fact that they are without exception unknown to history. After the age of Zarathustra himself, this is of signal importance, as we've already seen from the inevitable deduction that the history of the religion between the prophet's time and that of the prose Avesta was located in a region which does not touch the annals of the outside world. The Fravashis were on one side simply the fathers, Sanskrit Pitara, the beloved ancestors generally acting in the mass. They're acting in a group. They watched over the welfare of their posterity, promoted birth, protected their grateful worshippers in battle, and even exercised a world activity, as we saw above. Well, that's what's believed of them, certainly. It is on this side that the cult of the Fravashis is most prominent today. the last 5 days of the 12th month, with the extra 5 days named after the 5 Gathas, which make up the 365, are the Farvardagan festival, during which Fravashis revisit the homes of their beloved relatives. This All Souls feast is worldwide and unmistakable in character, but the Yasht itself soon shows us that the Fravashis were very far from being only or even mainly the venerated dead. There is a very clear order of precedence in this stanza. These, O Spitima, are strongest. Of the spirits of the righteous, even those of the first believers, are those unmourned men, the future saviors, the world's restorers. Of the rest, the spirits are stronger, Zarathustra of the living, than the spirits of the departed. Yasht 13:17. We will not stop to speculate on the reason, but only to note that the Parsi thought never fell under the dominion of that sheer terror which the thought of ghosts inspired in most parts of the world. No people afraid of ghosts would have thought the living mightier than the dead. In so far as the Fravashis are ghosts, their kindly aspect is always to the fore. They keep a constant, beneficent watch over their own. In war they help them with puissant force of arms. In the home they are the mother's hope, and stay through her weary months of waiting. When we think of the inarticulate terror of the dead which makes its deep mark upon so many religions, we set it down to the credit of later Avestan religion, that they who love and helped in life are not imagined to have forgotten their old tenderness, because they have been through the great mysterious change. Meanwhile, we have observed that living men have their Fravashi, and at least certain men who are not yet born. Let us reinforce this statement. Of the twain great powers, creations, these at the world's end are mightiest. Even these, the good, the powerful, kindly spirits of the righteous, in that day they stood to action, when the twain powers made creation, even the kindly power and the friendly. Yasht 1378. The Fravashis, therefore, were among the first of the good creation, and took some part in the very outset of the struggle between Spenta Manu and Engra Manu. What that part was is not stated, and it is good thought and the fire that intervened to protect the fiend from damming the waters and stopping the growth of plants. Next we read that the Ameshaspans and the principal Yazads have their Fravashis. The prose adds one for Ahura Mazda himself. We also hear of Fravashis attached to communities. It is clear that the Fravashi is a spiritual element belonging to intelligences. Spiritual only and human. I don't want to just call everything divine and deities, but other than human, In two prose passages of the Yasht, we find the immaterial parts of intelligent creatures classified under 5 categories. And remember, worship, I think the word means remembering also, so that's going to just... Anyways, we worship the effectual thoughts, the selves of the future deliverers we worship, the souls we worship, those of tame animals we worship, the Fravashis we worship. We bring to mind is probably what we're referring. Yes, 1374. We worship now the vitality, the self, the perception, the soul, the Fravashi of the first believers, the first hearers of the lore, of righteous men and women who have struck a blow for right. Yasht 1349. 1355? The first of these passages has an imperfect list. The second represents the psychology current through the Avestan period. Spentameniu and Angrameniu. I've rendered power here, as spirits was wanted for Vervashayo. Spenta is the word often rendered as holy. In latter times, the second and the third was ejected to make room for body and image, the latter defined as that which is before Lord Harmazd. It was also laid down at the death, the Fervashi and the soul united. We may hear, then, the careful definition of Bartholomä. Fervashe, a term for the immortal part, particular to the believer, the element which existed before his birth and will survive him. During the believer's life, his Fervashi watches as a guardian angel over him. The community of Fervashis, however, plays a part like that of the Indian Pitara, the Roman Manas. The doctrine expressly provides for pre-existence, according to the Bundahish, a work which probably contains a good deal of lost Avestan material. The Fervashis originally received a choice between remaining in heaven and joining the fight against evil by linking themselves with man. In this way, they became strongly individualized, and at death, united with the soul, form a spiritual unity that lives on forever. What happened to the Fervashi of a bad man is never defined. In some way, we must suppose that it detached from the man over whom it watched at the first, perhaps to rejoin the great host of impersonal Fervashis. To define these more precisely is hard. They impersonate collective unities, like the angels of the churches in the Apocalypse, and they are supposed to belong to all good creations. In the practical doctrine, there is little thought of this, but the Fervashi as an immortal spirit preserving the continued life of a dead ancestor. The eschatology of the latter Avesta does not really differ from the Gathic, except for the note of universalism, for which see below. There are Yazads. I was going to see what the comment was, but it wasn't really anything important. There are Yazads brought in who are not named in the Gathas, and the picturesque side is developed in some directions. Most conspicuously is this the case with the beautiful portrayal of the passage of the soul from the body into heaven and hell in the piece known as Hadoknask, or incorrectly as Yasht 22. This is wholly Gathic in its spirit, and it is essentially an expansion of Zarathustra's doctrine that the Dana, our self, is the determinant of everyone's destiny. We have the intermediate place, the limbo of those whose merits and demerits balance. Misvana Gatu, place of the mixed, but not described. The development of eschatology is seen in the teaching about the destiny of the world as a whole.